Hey cats, Ed, Beast, Bud here. Those cats over at Puma have really been hitting the spot with their running shoes recently. Models like the Deviate Nitro Elite 2 have really hit the spot, and I'm very excited to bring you another one today. We've got the Foreverrun Nitro. 2 sets of nitro foam built into this one and a hint of stability. How did it shape up over my initial runs? Let's take a look. Thanks for tuning in, people. It is always appreciated. As is a hit of that subscribe button. You could also tinkle the bell of notifications. Give this video a thumbs up like too, it helps with the algorithm. And share it with your running buddies. Munchen Gladbach. This is a shoe that Puma have sent over to good old Eddbud for a review, though they're not paying me to make this video, and they won't get to see my views before my valued viewers. Just making you aware, I don't have to say nice things about it. It's very bright, isn't it? My word. So in my UK size 11, the Foreverrun Nitro comes in at 324 grams or 11.4 ounces. That's a pretty nice weight for a shoe really, with 44 millimeters of stack height. Yep. 44, about 35 in the forefoot, making for around about a 9mm drop, give or take a millimeter or two. Now that is max cushioned if you ask me, so it does fit into that sort of Invincible Run Nimbus 25 soup, but you're talking a good 25 grams lighter than the Invincible Run 3. I think it's even lighter than the SC trainer from New Balance as well, so certainly a more nimble number. About 14 miles of running into this one so far, so a reasonable amount to get a good appreciation of the shoe. We will start with the upper first. So this one's certainly a little closer to something like the Vomero 16, perhaps, if you enjoyed that shoe from Nike. Construction's very similar. I'm liking the use of that power tape on the lateral and the medial sides of the shoe to give you a little bit of support and a great lockdown. I'm finding the upper a little bit voluminous, perhaps they've been a bit too generous with that material, though that could work fantastically if you've got a larger volume foot. I think mine's just sort of average, I suppose. I haven't looked at many other men's feet, so I can't really tell you. Quick smell test actually, we haven't done that for a while. Good, yeah, certainly very shoey. A little hint of glue there. Kind of synthetic, I suppose, but I kind of like that smell. Now, I like that Vomero 16 from a fit and sort of comfort perspective, and that's very similar to what I have here. Very flexible in the toe box. Look at that. Very easy to get a good lockdown in the shoe. Barely even have to sort of think about it. You just put your foot into the shoe, cinch those laces, and you're done. I haven't had to mess around with it and retie it. No heel slip whatsoever. There's quite a bit of padding back there in the heel, and quite a considerable counter as well. There's certainly a stability element to this shoe, though when you start running in it, you just don't really feel it. There's a pull tab if you like that kind of thing, though it's barely there. I mean, you could cut it off if you really wanted to. There are these sort of leopard print-like details here on the shoe. Whether that's like adding any sort of weight or something, I don't know, but it's a kind of daily shoe really. It's not for racing or anything, so I don't think it adds any extra grams. Yet again, Puma are using those double lace loops here on the tongue, and it works a treat. No tongue slip or slide whatsoever. And there they are for you in all their glory. Quite a lot of toe box room here, so if you've perhaps found some previous Puma shoes a little bit narrow up there, your toes can splay a little bit more this time round. Just a little bit more forgiving and less curved in that sort of lateral medial side at the very top end of the shoe. I found that padding keeps the ankle collar away from the actual foot, so there's no discomfort there whatsoever. And I quite like the fact that that sort of counters on the outside of the shoe. It just stays away from your foot and does what it's got to do. Just didn't really feel it at all. Does feel like there's 2 parts to it. There's one that's internal, and then you've got this sort of shiny, almost silicone feeling type piece, but it's a more subtle hint at stability. Partially gusted tongue with a little bit of extra padding near the action end. No need for huge sponge here, and the eyelets just do the trick. I certainly review shoe uppers on how they feel when I run in them, not while I'm walking about or anything like that. It's kind of weird. No pressure points or weird sensations going on at all. I think I'll probably give this one a 2.6 out of 3 for the upper after my initial runs, only lowered by the somewhat short laces that may be a challenge, I suppose, if you're wearing gloves. And there's a bit of excessive material here around the initial eyelets for me. I've got a normal width foot, so just something to bear in mind, people. Midsole, midsole, midsole now. Now, gotta be honest, there's a very large amount of midsole foam here in the shoe. I think it's probably taken up the majority of the weight. It's very cushioned though, not overtly squashy, but I did find that the shoe changed character as I got a few initial miles into it. By like the 13th or 14th mile, it was very, very pleasurable. I'd say it's probably a little bit closer to the SC trainer from New Balance in terms of the midsole feel than something like the Invincible Run or the Nimbus 25. But very, very similar to that Vomero 16 for me. In fact, I had to stop a couple of times and say to myself, which shoe am I wearing? You can spot that inner soft foam there. It's sort of like a aqua blue colour. That softer foam internally and that sort of slightly more rigid outer section remind me a little bit of a Cadbury's cream egg. It just sits right in the middle for me in terms of really nice sort of guided cushion. It's a nice smooth feeling without it being too squashy. 24 kilometers into the shoe and it's just getting better and better each time I use it. I think Puma are quite smart here introducing that stability element into the midsole area. They know that not all everyday runners are going to get on with something like the Invincible, which is inherently very squashy with limited stability. I think this is a slightly more subtle take on a max cushioned model here, building on what's worked within something like the Infinity Run, that Invincible Run, and the Hoka Bondi series. Just something in the middle there, in that sort of triad. It's like cushion, squash and stability. It's just right. I mean, with the mass we've got here, it's certainly not a pace shoe by any means. It's just one for getting some really nice smooth daily miles in. Perhaps you can do your long runs in this one, maybe some recovery work as well. You know, it's no sub 260 gram Adidas Adios model here, though it's not a chunky shoe either. I don't find it too bulbous in the midsole. I'd love to know what the shoe would be like if they implemented Nitro Elite as that softer core. Maybe that's something we'll see from Puma in future shoes in 2024. I didn't intend that to rhyme, but it did. Don't expect Prime-X like squash here. This is a more controlled, smooth ride, and at the end of the day, that's exactly what I've been feeling. Perhaps usable for some marathon training, where you want something that's forgiving but with a reasonable mass as well. Now, the odd inclusion here, a special insole with an egg-shaped like protrusion in the centre near the arch. Puma suggests they've included this to improve the support and stability underneath the foot. It almost massages the bottom of the foot. Feels a bit odd when you first put on the shoe, but I actually quite enjoyed it while I was running. Not sure what that says about me, and I don't care. Puma have packaged up all their supportive elements into this shoe into a new system. It is called the Run Guide system, and it's certainly a more subtle take on that support type shoe. Doesn't feel remotely jarring or controlling of your foot strike. In fact, it doesn't really even feel like a support shoe to me, to be honest. So that outer Nitro cage is starting to get a little bit more flexible over time, and you do need to get some miles into it. So perhaps if you pick the shoe up and you think, what's Eddbud on about? Well, just get some more miles into it and you will soon see. It's a little bit like, you know, a nice seasoned cricket bat. The inner core here just becoming a little bit soft and kitten-like. Well, maybe not that soft, but you know, it's enjoyable. Easy paces, around about 8 minutes per mile. The shoe's nice and smooth on foot strike and performs like a model that you would expect for this type of setup. Certainly a Vomero 16-like vibe. It's a bit like you've got a tour guide who's kind of guiding you round the centre of York, showing some stone reuse, but then allowing you to take a closer look for yourself. I found it handled some higher paces okay. It certainly wasn't unusable, though I don't think it's ever going to be like a breakneck pace shoe. It's a daily mile eliminator. I think they got the width of the shoe just right here. As you can see, it does sort of splay over the edges of the upper a little bit. Just a really nice controlled landing. A little bit more controlled than the Invincible Run. Less firm, I suppose, than the Nimbus 25. Less squashy and better fitting in the upper than the SC Trainer. And close to that lovely Vomero 16. There, I got it again. You could play Vomero 16 bingo in this video. Maybe wind it back to the start and see how many times I say it. For midsole, after my initial runs, I'm going to give it a strong 2.7 out of 3, only slightly lowered by the more limited versatility of the shoe over pace range. I'd love to know what it would be like perhaps without the heel clip as well, if they got rid of it. What would that feel like? Outsole now. Oh, I'll tell you what, lots of Puma grip here, and that makes a man happy. It's like a big slab of Puma grip. Though they've cut some out here in the sort of arch area, there's a real nice spring and flex to that outsole, I think, because they've reduced the amount of rubber here. Now, these cutouts are my only sort of Achilles heel, I suppose, of the shoe. I did get a few rocks stuck in here and had to ladle them out. Ladle them out? You know what I mean. They're just large enough to allow some sort of debris in there, and I have had to clean it out a couple of times. Though if you're running on road, you'll probably be okay. I did find as the foam actually gets a bit more malleable, the more miles you get into it, you tend to get a lot more stuff in there. That might make this one a road and pavement shoe for some people, though the grip with this big cat is absolutely tremendous as per usual. That sort of rear heel section really does remind me of the Nimbus 25. As you can see here, very sort of similar vibes in the two shoes in that heel area. It's a very different approach though in the mid to forefoot section of the shoe. The grip is second to none, people. Really fantastic. I don't know what they put in this stuff. When I do get to speak to some of the Puma officials in Boston, Massachusetts, when I head over there in April, I am going to ask them. That's going to be my first question. Durability seems okay. I've had no wear or anything at all at the moment, and that's pretty much what happens with all Puma shoes for me. So really loving the tactile nature of the rubber. I just wish that perhaps these little cutout sections were a little bit smaller, or they've made them a slightly different shape so that stuff didn't get caught in there. I'm going to give it a 2.6 out of 3 in terms of the outsole after my initial runs. So value wise, this one's dropping over here in the UK at the start of March. I think it may already be out by the time you watch this video. I think it's 140 of the English Earth credits, which I think is a pretty reasonable price actually for this shoe for what you're getting. You're going to get some great durability, fit and comfort is on point. I mean, that's a clear 30 quid less than the Invincible Run 3, and there's not a hint of heel slip here, and I know some people have been experiencing that in the Nike shoe. Don't sort of be put off by the fact there are some stability elements here. I do think they're quite subtle. Not really in your face or on your foot at all. I didn't find myself having to adjust my running style at all. Just seems to adapt to whatever you throw at it, really. I guess the main thing here is, you know, what do you want from a shoe of this type? Do you want like a nice cushioned cruiser to absorb those easy miles? I mean, if you want a feather-like option, you're just going to be looking elsewhere, aren't you? The odd one here is that it's only about 25 grams heavier than the Velocity Nitro 2 from Puma. That's very much like a shorter range daily option. I think you could probably do your long runs in this one no trouble. The increased amount of nitro foam here, which does appear to have two different softnesses to it, really does hit the spot. There's just a little bit more of a forgiving nature because we've got none of that pro foam included here. I think if the Nimbus 25, the Invincible Run, or perhaps the SC Trainer didn't work for you, this could be your answer. Build quality's on point as well. It's a really nice, well put together shoe. There's no sort of odd glue marks anywhere or poor stitching or anything. No mismatched midsole sections. A well put together shoe, just one for perhaps a more specific sort of niche. I'll give it a 2.6 out of 3 for value after my initial runs. Okay, if I've totted up the scores correctly for the Puma Foreverrun Nitro, it gives us a very strong one. 10.5 out of 12 after my initial runs. Have I piqued your interest with this Puma shoe? Let me know if you're thinking about picking it up or your opinions on it down in the comments. Musical interlude time. Check out Low Raw's album Ross. I think this was released in 2019. I got turned on to their sounds from playing the video game Death Stranding, the Hideo Kojima title. Really fantastic game. You can walk about and deliver things. I know it sounds a little bit boring, I suppose, but it's anything but. He integrated some music by Low Raw into that game, and it really did provide some fantastic atmosphere. Hair standing up sort of situations where you just feel like completely alone in this big world. Tracks that stand out for me from this album are Slow Down and I'll Make You Feel, which sort of builds up and builds up and builds up to this fantastic crescendo. Wonderful use of reverb and delay on this album, and some really nice instrument choices as well to back up the very subtle and soft vocals. Go and check it out, people. Ross by Low Raw. Thanks for tuning in, cats and kittens. It's always appreciated. Hit us up with a super thanks if you've been enjoying the content recently, or become a member of the channel to support us on a sort of more long-term basis. Hit that subscribe button, click the bell below for notifications. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you